Premier Gospel.
So for the first time, a group of professionals have come together to create an organisation committed to training and empowering the Black church leaders appropriately to support victims of domestic abuse and violence. And with me, I have Kim Bacchus. Is that how you say your last name?
It's Bacchus. Yes, it is. It's a Greek god of wine, but we won't go into that.
Oh, wow. That's for another interview.
That's for another talk.
You're a survivor yourself, and you are a trainer in this program as well. Thank you for joining me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
So we're gonna get into it. But the first question I wanted to ask was, why do you think the church has a difficulty in supporting victims of domestic abuse? Why do you think that is?
Oh, it's very simple. It's not rocket science. It's no fault of the church or any of the leaders in the church. It's simply the fact is that there's no awareness on the subject. It's when you don't know something and it becomes quite scary. But like when you learn it, it becomes quite like, oh, is that all there was to it? And so that's all it is. It's just about awareness, understanding what domestic violence is and what it entails and what you can do to help. It's just simple, basic steps. It's like anything in life. If you don't understand it, you're afraid of it. It's like driving a car. You can't get in a car unless you've learned to drive it. So once you've learned to drive, once you learn to drive and you pass a test, you do it without even thinking about it. So that's all it is. It's a lack of understanding. The Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And that's all it is. It's just not understanding what to do. And it's a very scary subject. So it is a fearful thing to think about. So, but that's all it is. It's no fault of the church. It's no fault of a leader. It's just basically not knowing what to do. That's all it is.
Yeah, it is a scary subject because I don't think people know how to address people that are going through it or what to say. Some people say the wrong thing. I know that you have your own story. So is that why you were so passionate about getting involved?
Oh God, yeah. But if you'd have told me this many years ago, I would have said I would have never seen myself in this position, because being a victim of domestic abuse, you don't really see a future, or you see something quite bleak. And that, you're counting down days when you think, this could be your last day. My experience was quite traumatic. It was a terrible situation where I actually got involved with someone that I thought loved me, and it turned out the complete opposite of love. And he abused me terribly in very violent, very physical violence, and very mentally he abused me as well. It took me a long time to get out of it because we had a child together as well. The beatings became very severe, and I think for me, the wake-up call one day, and I know we're conscious of time, so I really can't get into the story, but just to paraphrase it, is just that I think what got me out, and I'm really hoping if anyone's listening right now that this could probably help you, is if you have children, look at your children. Because I looked at my son and I said, I don't care where I live. If I live on the streets, I don't care. But anything is better than him seeing this, experiencing this, and one day possibly being that. And I didn't want that. So I wanted better for my child. And I took that risk and I decided to leave. And as Sod's law would have it, when I thought that he wouldn't be home, he actually did come home and found me packing. And that I took a severe beating on that day, but I carried on walking. And it's very hard because being a victim of domestic abuse, this can be this sort of behaviors can become quite normal for a victim. And I must admit, when I stood at that front door about to walk out with my black bags in tow, may I add, I actually felt, am I doing the right thing? Should I do this? Should I walk? Or if I go out there in that big world, I don't know anything out there. This is all I know. I literally felt like something pushed me outside the front door and said, go walk. And I walked, and tears on my face. I was so afraid. I was so scared. I didn't know what I was entering into. But I always said, never underestimate what's going through a mind of a victim. It's very frightening. This had become the norm for me. I'm so glad I did walk. And that's it. My life became better after that, much better after that. But it was a very bad situation for me. Yes, indeed.
A lot of people say, why didn't you just go? What would you say to people that do say that, who have ever asked you that, why didn't you just leave earlier? Why did you stay with him?
What would I say to somebody saying that to someone?
Saying that to someone, or people that have said that to you.
Okay. I have had that happen to me. I can only go by my own experience. But first of all, what you have to understand, okay, this is a process. This is something that just, you can't just say, oh, this is what I, leave, just go. Why don't you just leave? Because unless you step into the person's shoes, you can never understand the fear, the psychological damage that's been imposed on them, the feeling of like, what do I do next? And, how am I going to survive? It's a different world, okay? So unless you're in that space, unless you take the time to understand how a victim thinks at that point in time, you can never understand. And it's the worst thing to say to somebody, just leave, just go, and sort of like act in horror when they say, well, no, I can't go, because you're not understanding it. And that's fair enough, because you're thinking, I just don't get it. Why don't you just leave? Why don't you just leave? I think the key message to take away here is that the first thing you've got to do is assure the victim that they're not to be blamed, okay? It's so easy to feel that you are responsible as a victim, that you caused this, you made him angry, you're in your position, you made your bed and you lied in it, you know what I mean? It's so easy to feel that way, so you feel like you deserve it. You've got to also make that person feel that they're not alone, and that they have someone if they need to speak to, that you're there for them, and that actually they don't deserve to be beaten black and blue. What you must absolutely do is listen and believe them. Really keep calm. Your facial expression can put a victim off immediately. As a look of doubt, a look of like, really? That would shut down a victim immediately. You've got to respect their choices. Not all the time. In most cases, you can ask the victim to leave 100 times and they will never leave. You have to allow them to make that decision for themselves. There will come a point where I always say you hit rock bottom. I always say you hit that valley point where you think, I can't do this anymore. But only you as a victim will know that. But the fact that you have someone out there that's on your side is an added bonus, because you know that person's not going to judge you. It's not going to push you to do something you're not wanting. When you're ready, you've got someone to reach out to. Well, I must say, do not ever react with shock or anger, because that is a shutdown for a victim. Don't make unrealistic promises like, if I can help you move, and I can do this for you, I can do that, because it's very dangerous to do that also. Don't even think about insulting that perpetrator, like saying, oh, that's so and so, he's a this and that, because you don't understand the dynamic relationship between those two. She could love him, and even though she's saying he does this to her, that is love. And don't force them to take any actions that they're not ready to, but inform her. Like I say, awareness and knowledge is key. So what you do, excuse me, is that you sow a seed. You help them to understand, I'm here for you, number one, if you need any help. But do you know that there are resources out there? There are people there that can help you. You're not on your own. Anytime you need help, here's my number. Here's a code word if you want any help. If you want to meet here next week, whatever. You give suggestions and you sow the seed. And trust me, as a victim, you walk away and you're feeling quite lifted. And so when you do encounter abuse over and over again, there's something in you now says, well, hang on a second. I remember that person saying this to me. There is help out there. I can call on that person. Do you know what? I'm ready to do this now. Whereas when you don't have anyone, that's the bad part. And when you're forcing someone, that's another bad thing as well, because you're not going to listen to anyone. You just actually push them.
I remember there was a BBC Three thing a few years ago called Murdered by My Boyfriend. And that was such a powerful thing, because it was a true story. This happens. And it was so devastating to see that it can just happen. And what can you do? It's hard. But yeah, so there's so many people that don't manage to get away.
Yeah, it's so sad. And that could have been my story as well. I mean, it took me about 10 years to make that move. And he often threatened that he would kill me. and that if I ever decided to leave, he'd find me and hunt me down. And I mean, even when I did leave, it was still scary for me. I ended up leaving the country. I had to go live abroad for a bit because I was so scared for my life, and I felt that albeit the police were involved, and that person, and you know what they're like, and you know what they're capable of. But thank God I got away, and and I came back, and since then, obviously I've become stronger as a person. I realized my worth, my value, and who I am, and that no one, whether a man or woman, deserves to be in any relationship that does not demonstrate love, but violence and abuse. So I've conditioned my mind now. So and as time went on, and that's hence why I've become so passionate on this subject as well, because part of my journey in an abusive relationship, I did belong to a church as well, not the one I'm presently at, but another one. And albeit they were very lovely, they were very nice, but some of the leaders knew I was going through an abusive relationship, and I never felt supported. I never felt that when I came in with a busted lip or black eyes, or I was wearing clothes that covered me up because I didn't want you to see my bruises. I was very, I had no confidence. I was very quiet all the time. There was no probing. There was no asking, are you okay? It was assumed that, oh, she's okay, because she's here. No, I wasn't okay. I was in pain. And all I wanted was someone to reach out to me. And you could have probably saved me years of torment, because I had to still go home to that rubbish. But if someone had reached out to me, made me feel that I've got someone there on my side should anything happen. The fact I stayed so long because I felt I had no one. But and I always said that when I was learning about God, I know that God is a God of love, but I never felt that was demonstrated in trying to help me and helping me feel safe within the church environment. And like I said, it's because of they didn't know probably what to do. They didn't even know how to approach subject. What do you say to somebody that's been abused? And and how is it a minefield? If you do ask, what are you getting yourself into? Do you have to help this person? And how do you help this person without that landing on your doorstep? So yeah, I understand it now, but at the time I felt quite rejected. I felt that you wasn't there for me. But the fact of the matter, it's still happening today in churches. So that's why I'm on this road on a mission to make, to help, to talk about it. Yes.
Good. And I think it's great as well for the victims, because they won't have a bitterness towards the church, because you could be going to this church every single week, and like you said, you watch it and you're thinking, why is no one helping? Why is no one saying anything? And you could then build up a resentment in your heart for the church.
I absolutely did. I fell away from the church. I didn't want to know. I just felt that was a place I went for safety. I thought that they would help me. They didn't. And I actually went to people outside of the church that helped me. And my confidence was in that arena, not in my church, which is so sad. And it took me away from God. And, I thank God that I'm back on that. Imagine that break could have made or break me. Do you know what I mean? I would not be sitting here talking about Jesus or talking about this whole thing. I could have just been doing other things in the world now, just getting on with my life, because of not being supported within the church environment.
It's important, very important, man. So we're going to bring it over to the program and what you are doing. But the first question I wanted to ask as well was, there's a lot of men that go through domestic violence as well. The church there was a man who was going through it, and he didn't want to say anything because he thought it made him less of a man. He thought it made him seem a bit weak, because his wife was quite small, but she was doing horrendous things at home. Does this program aim to help us help men and women, or is it more directed at helping women?
It's predominantly directed at women, but in saying that, the program is so versatile, it can apply to help men that are as victims. If you're asking, do we do training for perpetrators? No, not yet, but we're hoping to. As time goes on, we're going to bring someone in. But in regards to victims, whether male or female, yes, we do. Yes, absolutely. The same rules apply to them. It's not any different. We shouldn't differentiate between the two. Abuse is abuse. Okay, let's just cut it down to size. It's a criminal offense at the end of the day, okay? And if you're harboring an abuser within your church, you might as well say you're harboring a murderer, because sin is sin. Not one is greater than the other. So it's a criminal offense. So of course, we're going to want to reach out to men and women as well. And we welcome men as well. But, we probably will do it as a separate course, because some women may feel uncomfortable being in an environment with a man talking about intimate subjects of being abused by a man, and you've got a man sitting there. But we will definitely accommodate both female and male in that situation. Absolutely.
That's great. So the course, it's a one-day course?
It is a one-day course. Yes, it is. I'll tell you a little bit about who we are. Well, we're the Black Church Domestic Abuse Forum, and it's a group of Black Christian social workers, psychologists, pastors, advocates, academics, who basically were addressing that big elephant in the room in that congregation called domestic abuse. And so, the bottom line is that silence and acceptance of domestic abuse really undermines the teaching of love. And, it really does corrupt this sort of ethos of the church as a place of safety and sort of deliverance. I'm a member of this Black Church Abuse Forum, and also one of the trainers on the program. And we deliver training to church leaders and groups based on a toolkit framework called Walk in the Way of Love. Now, this toolkit is really essential it's like a guidance document, and it's a training resource. I must add that domestic abuse is common across all communities, okay, not just because we're just saying it's a Black Church Domestic Abuse Forum, it's across the board. And so really belonging to any faith group can be a barrier to accessing and help with support for secular organization for domestic abuse. So the Walking Away of Love Abuse Toolkit is designed to empower churches and to improve their response to domestic abuse. So our training, which myself and Reverend David Shoshania do the training on this course, we train church leadership to review and to revise their approaches to dealing with domestic abuse, and to commit to a program of action to become more focused, to become more visible, both within the church and the wider community. Basically, we want churches to be more vigilant as well and visible in their actions, to send a real zero tolerance message for domestic abuse. Our toolkit is amazing. It really is a guidance document, and extensive research has been carried out by a member of our panel, Dr. Ava Kanyarensi at University of East London, which formulates part of this toolkit. So it's not just a document we've just slapped together. A real thought and real studies have gone into producing this document, which is the basic of our guidance for our training and what we produce and what we deliver to churches.
Wonderful. Is this well, first of all, yes, is where can we find this? How do we get the toolkit? How do we get the training?
Okay, well, you can go to our website, which is BCDAF. That stands for Black Church Domestic Abuse Forum. So it's bcdaf.org.uk. And there's a tab called training. And if you go under that tab, it tells you everything you need to know.
Wonderful.
And you can actually download the toolkit as well.
Okay, cool. Oh, that's great then. Last thing then as well, if there is someone listening in right now and they are going through this, what advice would you give to them? Would you say to reach out? Would you say to, what advice would you give to someone who is listening in right now and they're thinking, I need help?
Okay, the first thing I would say that if you, listen, the bottom line is that your safety and the safety of your children has to be your priority here. And I would say dial 999, call the police immediately. or reach out to a domestic abuse provider or someone in your community. They've got lots of organizations in the community. Find out where you can get help from to get advice on what to do next. Don't ever hesitate. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of victims. I said, oh no, Kim, if I call 999, it feels like I'm bothering them. It feels like I shouldn't be calling these people because they've got so much. They've got to go after killers and murderers. Well, hang on a second. What you're going through is a criminal offense. So yes, you have all right to be calling 999. It's their job to listen, it's their job to help you, and it's their job to get you out of it. I just want to mention there's a scheme known as ASK for Annie, and it stands for Action Needed Immediately, ANI. And it's been developed to allow victims of domestic abuse to access help by using the code word at your local pharmacy. So if you're a victim of abuse and you say Annie, you know, the pharmacy like Boots or any pharmacy have all been trained and know what to do in order to help you right there and then. So that could be an avenue that you could go and try to find, see if you can get some help. Another way you can do it is obviously being in lockdown as well. You know, obviously we've been hearing on the news in regards to domestic abuse, how the figures have risen. And like making phone calls within your house could be quite difficult. So another government solution would be to something called the silent solution. So when you dial 999, you ask, you know, the emergency service will come on. And if you can't speak and you cannot say you want the police or your ambulance, you do a code, you cough, or you tap the handset. And then you'll be prompted by the operator to say, press 55 on your phone. And when you do that, the 999 call operator knows immediately that this is a domestic abuse situation, and they will transfer you to the local police force or whoever they need to give you further instructions. So they're very conscious of where you are and that you cannot speak, so that they will try and help you as much as they can. So they've got quite a few schemes out there that are helping those that are in a situation of domestic abuse. But like I said, don't hesitate. Call 999 and get out there to their 24-hour National Domestic Violence Helpline out there. Call them. They are trained. They are there to help you. If you know, that's to me is your first port of call. And obviously in the training, we go into more in-depth of things that you can do to prepare yourself before you decide to leave and what more you can do. But for just for the sake of this call, I would say immediately just call 999 and don't ever think that your case or whatever you're calling for is not important, because this can mean either life or death. So don't hesitate. Please call. That's what they're there for. 999.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me.
Premier Gospel.